Good afternoon, everyone. For Telesur, I'm CODY WEDDLE in Caracas, Venezuela. We're going to begin today in Mexico. That's where activists are stepping up their demands for justice over the 43 Ayotzinapa students who were forcibly disappeared in September. Tens of thousands protested in Mexico City and across the country exactly 4 months after the event that has shaken the Mexican establishment. The demonstrations paralyzed the 4 main avenues that cross the capital for almost 10 hours. The organizers say their struggle will not stop until the students are returned alive.
We say we want our children back alive because to us they're not dead. They were taken alive on the 26th of September and we want them back alive.
For more now from Mexico, we turn to our correspondent there, Clayton Kahn.
Yesterday saw dozens of protests and actions across Mexico and even in many places of the globe with the continued demand for justice in the Ayotzinapa case. Now 4 months after police forcibly disappeared the 43 students. Protests were held in at least 20 states in the Mexican Republic. In the capital, parents and classmates of the missing students led at least 4 marches that converged in the city's main Zócalo Square. Thousands participated, including unions, student, and civil groups. The show of strength comes after much of the media has begun to downplay the movement, especially after a winter holiday break that many assumed would reduce the intensity. Meanwhile, the parents and the missing students declared in a rally yesterday that they will boycott the 2015 midterm elections to be held in various states this summer. They called all the political parties as one corrupt political class and placed blame on the institutions for the disappearance and possible mass murder of their youth. They declared that a National Popular People's Convention will be held on February 5th in the state of Guerrero to begin to organize a populist political process. This is Clayton Kahn reporting for Telesur here in Mexico City.
And thanks to Clayton, the Venezuelan government has strongly rejected an official statement by Colombia that supports the jailed Venezuelan extremist Leopoldo Lopez. Venezuelan officials say the statement threatens a dangerous regression in bilateral relations. Now, on Monday, the Foreign Ministry in Bogota issued a communique criticizing Venezuela for not allowing former Colombian President Andrés Pastrana to visit Lopez in prison. The Colombian statement also expressed a desire to see the Venezuelan opposition leader freed. Lopez is awaiting trial for his role in investigating violent street protests in Venezuela last year, which left 43 people dead. In its reply, the Venezuelan Foreign Ministry says that it, quote, rejects the position of the Colombian Foreign Ministry as this concerns Leopoldo Lopez, who has committed serious crimes against human rights and who has publicly called for the overthrow of the legitimate Venezuelan government. It goes on to say that we lament the fact that the Colombian Foreign Ministry takes positions that undermine the constitutional government of President Nicolas Maduro and constitute a dangerous regression in bilateral relations, end quote. Our correspondent Natalia Margarita in Colombia has more on these developments.
Written statement, Colombia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has confirmed that this country's embassy in Venezuela is not coordinating in any way the visit of former Colombia's President Andrés Pastrana Arango, as it was a trip personally planned by him. Pastrana Arango has announced publicly his intention to visit Venezuela in order to hold a meeting with Leopoldo Lopez, who's currently under detention accused of serious human rights violation in this neighbor country. Venezuela's Ministry of Foreign Affairs denounced Pastrana's intention of meeting with someone who has openly called for the overthrow of Venezuela's democratically elected government, and has also firmly condemned this attitude aimed to destabilize the good neighbor relations between Colombia and Venezuela. From Bogotá, Natalia Margarita, Telesur.
Thanks to Natalia. Foreign ministers from Latin America and the Caribbean are meeting in Costa Rica ahead of the continent-wide CELAC summit. The 33 foreign ministers are set to coordinate the agenda that will shape the third summit of the Community of Latin America and Caribbean States, which will begin Thursday. There are at least 23 proposals on the table which will be reviewed by the ministers regarding issues such as climate change, heightened cooperation, and the U.S. blockade of Cuba. In an effort to clean up corruption, Argentinian President Cristina Fernandez has announced the creation of a new federal intelligence agency. The announcement comes in the wake of the death of federal attorney Alberto Nisman. The controversial case seems to point to the responsibility of former intelligence head Jaime Stuoso. Members of Argentina's ruling Justicialist Party gathered in support of President Fernandez and denounced destabilizing actions of those trying to discredit the government over the death of prosecutor Alberto Nisman. Nisman was investigating the 1994 bombing of the Argentine-Israeli Mutual Association in Buenos Aires.
The death of the prosecutor investigating the AMIA case has uncovered a dark web of interest of power and political manipulation in a key year for Argentina. Faced with these actions, the National Council of the Justicialist Party, which is a part of the governing Front for Victory coalition, demanded clarification of these events.
What we have to do is ask for explanations, that the prosecutor investigates the case without any pressure from the media, and that the media stops making assumptions of what happened, and we leave the judiciary to do its job.
The council urged the cessation of the use of lies and slander from sectors such as the opposition and monopolised mainstream media, which seek to exploit the tragedy to attack the national government.
The opposition leaders try to come across as naive, but in reality, they are far from naive, because they go to the US Embassy more often than how they go to the mass. They are like the vulture funds, manipulating information.
Members of the council read a document of full support to the president and reported false information and public attacks made by members of the judiciary and intelligence services. The party called for respect for the institutions of the republic and demanded swift justice to reach the truth. From Buenos Aires, Leo Politico, Telesur.
Thanks to Leo. Cuban revolutionary leader and former President Fidel Castro has released a letter giving his views on the renewal of diplomatic relations between the Caribbean island and the United States. Castro expressed his agreement with the efforts to restart diplomatic relations between both countries and expressed distrust in the U.S. Now, he based that distrust on the U.S.'s long history of interventions around the world and its profound differences with the Cuban government. Peruvians are celebrating the rejection of a proposed youth labor law reform. The Congress rejected the reform after massive demonstrations against the bill, which had proposed a series of reductions in labor rights for young people between the ages of 18 and 24. Thousands gathered in Lima's Plaza San Martin to celebrate the victory. Officials of the only water company in St. Lucia say they are trying to avert a water crisis on the island. With an explanation, here's our correspondent, Allison Kentish.
Officials of St. Lucia's Water and Sewage Company WASCO say the island's main source of water, the John Compton Dam, has been severely compromised. They say years of landslides from the above catchments have caused the accumulation of silt in the dam, which now operates at half its built capacity.
Recall that last year, and even this year, we are still continuing in a very severe hydrological drought situation. That has not abated. We started implementing measures in March of last year, and then we had a water-related emergency, which is in effect because we have not had rainfall for the year. What it means for us is that we need to make sure we factor that into whatever we are going to be doing this year for the purpose of ensuring that we can supply water to sustain the economy of St. Lucia.
As for what people are doing to help the situation, FITZGERALD John says there are many simple measures each person can take to conserve water. He has been on a campaign, fearing a water crisis is imminent.
This is the time now for persons to start to use water more sparingly, start to collect rainwater, start to get the cisterns in order, start to get stuff that they could use to collect water.
The water worries are not unique to St. Lucia. Many Caribbean countries are putting measures in place to ensure water is not wasted. Caribbean governments have put water conservation on the priority list for climate change adaptation. Meanwhile, officials of the water company say there is no room for error in this project, as the water reservoir must be rehabilitated to avoid catastrophic results. The water and sewage company is urging St. Lucians to adopt strict water conservation measures to protect the precious resource. From Castries, St. Lucia, Alison Kentish for Telesur English.
Thanks to Allison. To world news now. Conflict-ridden Syria continues to look for a resolution to its internal war. Syrian opposition groups are entering a second day of negotiations in Moscow, where they are trying to reach consensus on a peace accord. Once the opposition factions reach an agreement, a second stage of the peace process will take place involving the Syrian government. As peace talks continue in Russia, the Islamic State group in the border town of Kobani has been defeated by Kurdish fighters. Our correspondent in Syria, Nashwan Abdullah, has more.
After 4 months of fighting the Islamic State group, the Kurdish protection units announced that they had full control of Ain al-Arab Kobani on Monday. More than 600 fighters were killed as a result of battles since October. Islamic State forces have retreated about 3 kilometers from the city center, while their support groups are still bombing the city with mortar and rocket shells. A Pentagon spokesperson said that the Kurdish protection units have control of over 90% of Ain al-Arab, and the Islamic State has control of some of the surrounding countrysides. Nashwan Abdullah, Telesur, Damascus, Syria.
Thanks to Nashwa. Plans for a new seaport in Gaza are being put in place by the Hamas movement. Our correspondent Noor Harazin reports.
It was the ultimate Palestinian dream to have the right of freedom of movement, especially for the residents of Gaza who have been living under an Israeli siege for the past 9 years. The Hamas movement in Gaza brought that dream closer to reality in the coastal enclave as a ministerial committee in Gaza announced plans to prepare the enclave seaport to allow Palestinians to travel abroad. The enclave is the home to 1.8 million people. Its only getaway to the world not controlled by Israel is the Rafah border with Egypt, which has been basically closed since late October.
A seaport here in Gaza would be amazing. I know that this plan will take years to be implemented on the ground, but we can wait and witness the dream come through. I also hope that by the end we will be free from the Israeli occupation, so we don't have to get their approval for everything we do.
The port in Gaza City is currently restricted to fishers, whom Israel only allowed to fish up to a maximum of 6 nautical miles from the shore. Opening a port was one of the main Palestinian demands tabled during negotiations with Israel to firm up a truce agreement which ended a 51-day war in July and August. But the negotiations failed to get off the ground and the demand was never tabled. Noor Harazin, Telesu TV, Gaza.
Thanks to Noor. The Ukrainian government, together with rebel representatives in the eastern part of the country, will once again try to restart peace talks. Clashes have intensified after Kiev launched a full-scale offensive, prompting rebel forces to respond likewise. The European Council called upon Kiev to ensure that humanitarian aid reaches the eastern rebel-held provinces of Donbass and Lugansk. The statement comes after the rebel leadership announced that Kiev was blocking the entry of food and medical supplies. And the European Economic Council will meet to discuss the worsening situation in Ukraine and the recent election results in Greece. The meeting comes after newly elected Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras was named as finance minister. The radical anti-neoliberal economist Yaru Yavankis, who has vowed to renegotiate Greece's public debt. Forensic experts believe they have found the grave of the Spanish author Miguel de Cervantes in a tiny ancient chapel in Madrid. Cervantes, hailed as one of the greatest writers of world literature, died in 1616. This find is the culmination of a 9-month search under the chapel. The archaeologists found fragments of a grave with the initials MC in a cavity that had the remains of 10 people. These are being analyzed for positive identification. Cervantes was the author of Don Quixote, regarded as the first novel written in Spanish. It was 1 year ago today that folk icon Pete Seeger died at the age of 94. We leave you today with some of his music. We have plenty more on those stories we reported today at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle.
miner's son. He'll be with you, fellow workers, until this battle's won. Tell me which side are you on?